Hello and welcome to Global News Today, bringing you exclusive insights and fresh perspectives from leading experts and influential decision makers every weekday right here on Al Arabiya News. I'm Tom Burges Watson. Coming up on today's program, Elon Musk's father, Errol Musk, joins us to discuss his son's appointment to lead the Department of Government Efficiency under the upcoming Trump administration. President-elect Trump has also announced that he has picked Mike Huckabee as the new US ambassador to Israel. And in Lebanon, the parliamentary speaker, Nabih Berra, says he is awaiting concrete ceasefire proposals. This as the US envoy expresses hopes for a truce soon. Now, the US President-elect Donald Trump has chosen Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy to run a department which will focus on efficiency outside the bounds of the government. Well, Musk, who is amongst Trump's biggest supporters and donors, is known for his ruthless approach to cost-cutting. Well, in the announcement, Trump claimed that the duo will help, quote, dismantle government bureaucracy, slash excess regulation, cut wasteful expenditure, and restructure federal agencies. Well, reacting to the announcement, Musk took to his platform X, saying that all of the department's actions will be posted online, calling for public participation. Musk also said that the process will be both, quote, extremely tragic and extremely entertaining. Well, for more on these developments, I'm joined now by Elon Musk's father, Errol Musk. Thank you very much indeed for being with us once again, Mr. Musk. Great to have you with us. This is another first for the Musk family. Have you called your son to congratulate him?
No, I haven't had time to do that. But it's good news. And so what I expected, So it's good news. And I think it's good news for everybody. It's time for some house cleaning to be done in these government departments in most places, not just in the United States.
You don't sound very surprised about this. I mean, was there, do you think, a sense of inevitability as far as we're concerned, that this was the sort of role that Elon Musk would be given?
Well, yes, Elon has a tremendous task on his hands. He has a couple of 100,000 employees and a lot of very, very serious things going on in his life. So he has to be available for all that. He started all that and he has to continue. Can't just walk away from things that are, so much in the melting pot right now. And so time, of course, is a big thing. And I'm very glad to hear that he's going to share this portfolio with Vivek because that will be better. People at Elon's level and that have a great deal of their time is taken up every day by the decisions. So to have him sit in an office somewhere in Washington, waiting and twiddling his thumbs, no, he has to be called upon on a sort of consultancy basis.
We're going to talk a bit more about the role and how it's going to be shared with Vivek Ramaswamy in just a moment. But I just want to ask you why you think Donald Trump chose him for this job and what you think he brings to the table.
Well, obviously, Elon has started the only viable space launch facility on basically, nothing. He had almost nothing to start it with. And he started the biggest motor car company in the world with nothing, almost nothing to start it with. He didn't have big money behind him or anything like that. He used money he had to make sure that he could do that. And he's very frugal. He's always been frugal as a young boy. And he wants to do things as cheaply and better and quicker than anyone else. And I can't think of anyone more suited to a role like this than Elon. So, for example, when they bought X, he went in, saw what was going on, sent his cousin, my brother's son, in and said, clean this place up. And they reduced it from 8,500 to 1,000 employees. And it now functions better than it ever did.
You've, of course, known your son for 53 years now, and you mentioned some of the traits he demonstrated when he was younger. I just wanted to ask you to share an anecdote about your son, if you feel able to, something that perhaps showed you very early on that this was no ordinary son. This was a son who was perhaps going to be the richest man in the world.
Well, there's a lot of things I can think of. There's so many, but I can tell you one that I repeated now quite a few minutes ago to Swedish TV, and that is that once in about the 80s, we were due to go to the two sons, Elon and Kimmel, grew up with me. You know, from the entire school career, they stayed with me. And on a particular holiday in South Africa, we were due to go to a function, a sort of friends function. And it turned out that we didn't have any money. And in those days, you could only get money by taking a check to the bank and cashing it. There were no ATMs, and you know, there were no cards or anything like that. So you went, and you could only buy fuel, petrol, gas, with cash. And so we were due to go to a place which was some distance away, and we suddenly realized, well, we can't go. And so we were about to perhaps give them a ring and say we can't make it, when Elon said, I have some money in my drawer. He was about 15 or so, and went up to his desk, and he had this big desk I provided for him from our engineering office. And in one of the metal drawers we pulled out was a huge heap of coins. You know, in those days, coins were the way you bought things. I mean, it was more coins than anything else. And there was this huge heap of coins. And we counted out about, I don't know, let's say in dollars, we counted out about $500, $600 in coins. And so we suddenly had money. And the reason was he never spent his pocket money. He never spent it. He never used it. He just didn't spend it. And I think that's a very good indication. You know, with my other children, I can think of, you know, they would usually spend their money in advance. So, you know, so Elon was not like that. He's incredibly frugal, almost to a point of, you wish he wasn't that frugal, you know. He lives in a little house in Boca Chica, two little prepads pushed next to each other with a gap between them, which they've turned into a sort of barbecue spot between the two. And he lives in the one with his guard, one or two guards, and then the other one is filled with a few bodyguards. And, you know, that's how he lives. And if you want something when you go there, you have to get it yourself. You have to make your own tea or coffee, or if you want a sandwich or something, you have to make your own. Very
telling indeed. Now, Donald Trump, of course, has received millions of dollars in help from your son that obviously gave him a big boost on the campaign trail. I mean, do you think there's a sense here that Donald Trump really does owe him for that electoral victory?
No, not at all. Well, yes. I mean, I would say Elon becoming involved was the turning point for, in my opinion, it's a turning point for the election for Donald Trump. I mean, it's a turning point for Elon throwing his weight in. I don't think there's any doubt about that. But no, we don't want anything from the government of America or from Mr. Trump. We already have everything. So we don't need anything. We've got everything already. So what we would like is to be able to help other people to have things and to improve circumstances for other people. We don't want anything at all from in return, nothing at all.
But it's clear that even in the last week, I mean, since it became clear that Mr. Trump had won the election, your son's been pretty much permanently at Mar-a-Lago. Correct me if I'm wrong, if he hasn't been at Mar-a-Lago, but it's been reported that that's where he's been the last week. And it sounds, therefore, that he's going to be exerting quite considerable influence on the president-elect and his choices for the rest of the lineup.
Yes, but at the same time, Elon is a team worker. You know, he's proved that with all of the people he's got, with you know, all the different companies. He's a great team worker. So he's not going to try and throw his weight around or anything like that. I think you can expect only the best sort of decisions from Elon, mainly because he hasn't got time to become embroiled in arguments or anything like that. I think he will. I think Trump and Elon are very much on the same wavelength. I've followed Trump since the 70s because I've been in the same sort of business. Trump turned the west side of Manhattan, which were railway sidings, into some of the most beautiful buildings in America. And, you know, that's the sort of work I tried to do, I was doing. And, you know, Elon is going to add to Trump's performance, I would say, very much so. Elon is a teamwork, and he wouldn't join if he wasn't completely happy. I know that for a sake, that for sure. I mean, Elon would only do this if he's, totally committed. Otherwise, he wouldn't bother.
Just looking at his trajectory over these 53 years, and you mentioned him in the early days, looking after his pocket money very carefully and obviously growing some very successful businesses in his 20s and 30s and 40s. I mean, looking at that trajectory, we don't seem very surprised by a lot of his achievements. I'm just wondering, would you be surprised if perhaps he had his eye on the top job, perhaps in the years to come?
Well, obviously a lot of people have gone on to media and said, this is the type of person we would like to have as president. But I think at this time, you don't want to ruffle feathers. I think the same thing could be said to Vivek and to all of them. Is your eye on, the presidency in 32 and 28 and so on? No, I think none of us are thinking like that. We just want to make sure that this is a big success. I mean, America has been on the wrong road for 4 years. And a very bad road. And getting it right again is not going to be an easy task. It's going to be very difficult. And, I think I can honestly say that Trump has united America. So if you look at a map of America now, it's all one color. And so we have a situation that the people will be very much behind him. And these people who are generally out to cause trouble, I think they're just going to disappear. I saw this morning that CNN's on the point of bankruptcy. I wouldn't be surprised. I don't even know how they continue as it is. So, Elon has no eyes on anything more than trying to make sure that whatever he does now, he doesn't give a half a job, and that he's able to give a proper job without affecting his own work, I think that would be a big concern to him, that having to give up many of the meetings and board meetings and so on he has to make with his existing companies, of which he's the chairman and CEO, is very difficult if he has to say, well, I can't do that, I have to go to the government. So he'll be trying to see how on earth he can make sure that he covers everything. And I'm sure he will.
There's going to be a lot of multitasking required. And just in terms of the personality of your son and also Donald Trump, I mean, they've got some traits that, as an outsider, I don't know either person, but they've got some traits that one could say are similar. They're both said to be competitive. They both seem to be disruptors. I'm just wondering if you think that's justified and whether you think they've got other personality traits in common, the two men.
Well, yes, I told... many years ago, about 8 years ago, the boys held a party for my birthday in Cape Town, and they brought about 20 film stars and important people from America to this party. And during this party here in Cape Town, one of the people that came was with Hollywood. He said to me, with some John Favreau, he said to me, "We believe you support Trump." And I said, "Well, yes." And everybody had a good laugh about it. And I said, he said, "Why do you support Trump?" And everybody was laughing their heads off. And I said, well, not Elon and Kimball, they just kept quiet. They were very upset about it afterwards. And I said, I support Trump because he's just like us. I said to Elon, he's just like us. That was the actual words I said to my sons 8 years ago. I said, he's just like us. And so that answers everything. And afterwards, Elon and Kimball were both very upset and said I embarrassed them. But since then, they've thrown off that type of friendship and they've focused more on, other people and they don't worry about the Hollywood crowd anymore,
But it means that they will see the other side of the story if people criticize Donald Trump. They'll be able to see
Elon is
why.
Dead center. Let's just be clear here. Elon is dead center. He's not far right or anything like that. He's dead center. And to a large extent, Trump is dead center. I know people can't understand that. I mean, it was only a few years ago that Trump was, a flaming Democrat, and so was Elon. So they're dead center. And there's no doubt whatsoever in my mind that someone coming to Elon from the so-called left with a very good idea, Elon's going to say, "Oh, I don't want your idea." He's going to say, yes, come and tell us your idea. Elon will be quite happy to take advice from people who consider themselves far left or whatever, because he's not on some sort of limb anywhere. He's right in the middle. And people can bank on that, what I'm saying.
Yeah, I mean, it really sounds like you've steered him quite considerably politically during these 8 years and oriented it towards a different political path. I'm wondering, what do you think did it? What made him sort of change his views? How did you manage to convince him?
Well, I live in the sort of real world. I'm not in America. I live in a world where I unfortunately have to walk around armed all the time. So, a dangerous place. So he doesn't, many of the places in the world don't have that problem. And so I've had to learn from my own experience what works and what doesn't work. And, we'd all like some sort of, I suppose you call it some left-wing utopia. But in reality, life is not about left-wing utopias. It's about the real things that we have to deal with every day. And, Elon is going to be dead center. He's learned from me. I haven't taken it up with him. Unfortunately, just recently, he was kind enough to say to a whole group of SpaceX employees that he learned everything about engineering from me. He announced to the crowd, which I think is rather nice of him to have done. But I said, no, you didn't. You learned yourself. But he has listened to me. And I'm obviously very pleased to see where he is at the moment. He doesn't have to pretend anymore and to try and have friends. And in the past, it was to a large extent pretending so that you could be with people who seem to be fun or something like that. No. Elon is, as I say again, dead center. He will listen to anyone from the left or so-called right. He's not anything specific. He's right in the middle.
Well, it sounds like he listens to Dad more than quite a lot of other 53-year-olds I can think of.
Yes, he listened to me. Is that what you said?
Yes.
Yeah, they always listen to me. I've always been a sort of big figure in their lives. So it's been moving to another continent and being far away from me to, put Dad, in a pot and put the lid on, so that I'm out of range of telling them what to do all the time. Things have worked out very well and in that regard. And so, I think we can all be very grateful, and we'll have a safer world now. And I've no doubt whatsoever, even before the end of the year, that the Ukraine war will end, that the people in Hamas, there's two stories in Hamas, there's two versions, the argument has two sides, and there will be a settlement in Hamas, in Israel and Palestine, probably before the end of the year. Because the people who were doing it before were not working for that. They were working to keep the war going.
Sure. And I did promise I would ask you a few questions about the role that your son is going to be fulfilling, this new Department of Government Efficiency. As we've been saying, he's going to be working on that portfolio with Vivek Ramaswamy. I mean, what's your understanding of what exactly they're going to be doing?
Well, I would say the sky's the limit with Elon. Elon will look at things from the bottom to the top. There won't be some, little bit of interference here and a little bit of interference there. No. Elon will look at the whole thing from the top to the bottom. What is the purpose of this department or whatever it is? Who is doing it? And how are they doing it? How many people do it? How many people are? And so on. Elon handles it totally. You have to bear in mind, in 20 years, he's built the biggest car company in the world. So you have to realize that to do that, you have to have an understanding of how things work from the very small to the very big.
Yeah, I mean, he's known for a management style that I think by his own admission is fairly ruthless. I mean, he fired a large percentage of the employees at Twitter, 80%, I'm told.
Yeah.
Do you think that he's got similar plans for some of these government departments?
Yes, I would imagine. Yes, I would imagine so. The idea would be to trim. Twitter now operates on 1,000 employees better than it did on 8,000 employees. So, there's no doubt about it that he's going to improve things. And, it's not bad because a lot of people whose lives are being wasted in jobs that have no real level of producing anything will now possibly be released into the productive side of the world and into productive employment. And I think that's very, very good. Very, very important thing to do, A lot of these other countries like England are now trying to tax their way out of poverty. You can't do that. You have to put people into production. You have to make things. You have to produce things. And then you will see everything come right.
Yeah, I mean, your son said at one point he could find cost savings to the tune of $2 trillion US dollars. That's roughly a third of the total annual government expenditure. And he also said that this is, after all, public tax money that's being wasted. Let's just listen to a clip of what he actually said about that.
All government spending is taxation. So whether it's direct taxation or all government spending, it either becomes inflation or it's direct taxation. Your money is being wasted, and the Department of Government Efficiency is going to fix that.
Okay, so some big savings to be found. I mean, where, Mr. Musk, do you think these savings can be identified?
Well, you know, he will find all those savings. And I think any sensible people, not just Elon, put in a job like that, who are good at whatever they've been doing, will immediately do exactly the same as what Elon will do. It's not like it's some unique ability. A couple of years ago, the Biden administration earmarked or paid $500 million to have charging stations built for electric cars. No one knows where the $500 million went. No electric charging stations were built. In that same time, Elon put up thousands of charging stations. So the $500 million that Biden handed over for electric charging stations for the government to build in America, nothing was built. I mean, I think anybody who's paying tax should say, I want my money back.
Indeed. And I mean, it sounds like, just from what we've been hearing from your son and from what you're saying as well, your son has posted on his own platform X, Department of Government Efficiency, that's about his new job, DOGE. The merch will be, and then he's put some fire emojis, and then he said, threat to democracy, ? Nope, threat to bureaucracy. I mean, it sounds like there's going to be a real shock to the system, some real electric shock therapy for these government departments.
But we've all been looking for this for years. We've been looking for this. People like myself have been looking for this for years. I live in a country now where there's not where the money that is wasted every year is beyond calculation. And we don't have a single government department in this country that functions. There's not a single functioning government department in South Africa. And so what are they doing with all the money? If people here want to go overseas, they can't get passports. We don't have any, we are in such trouble here. And the money just keeps getting spent every year. So it's not rocket science. This is common sense. And I think people should thank the Lord that finally, at least if nothing gets done, at least something was said about having something done to put an end to this incredible waste that's going on all the time. I mean, recently FEMA in America ran out of money because they've been providing for illegal immigrants. So when they had the hurricane, they couldn't provide for Americans. They had no money. This is crazy stuff. So there's no doubt whatsoever that this is a very good thing, and people should be looking forward to it very much so. Looking forward to it very much so.
Okay, so for some of those people in those
government departments in America are going to be trimmed down. Let's make no mistake about that.
Sure, and if you were in one of those government departments, first of all, if someone said to you, Mr. Musk, what's your son's management style? How would you describe it in one word? What would you say? And as an extension of that question, how would such a person want to make sure they were fully prepared for a visit from your son, who might be going in there with the axe to find out ways to save some serious money?
I mean, people who are doing nothing, and they know they're doing nothing, and they pick up a fat check every month for doing absolutely nothing. And their only job is to try and make sure that they move up to the next level and get the next level of car and all that sort of stuff. That's no good. So these people will know who they are, and it's time for that to happen. Their lives will actually improve. There are many people who've been, being fired is not such a big deal in America. You know, people sometimes are proud that they were fired from someplace. I remember Steve Jobs was very proud when he was told people he's been fired from Apple. And so, because he said, it's no good, Apple's no good, I'm glad I was fired. And then he went back and re-established Apple. But no, people will find that their lives will be much better once they go out and take on life, the type of life they were meant to take on, instead of sitting in a government office twiddling their thumbs and pretending that they're doing things, pushing papers around from one side of the table to the other.
Just looking at reaction to this appointment, Senator Elizabeth Warren, I'm sure you have an opinion on her, made a slightly sarcastic comment. She said, the Office of Government Efficiency is off to a great start with split leadership, 2 people doing the work of 1 person. Yeah, this seems really efficient. Do you think she's got a point? Why are 2 people doing this job?
You say that somebody said that because it's shared between Vivek and Elon, that it shouldn't be like that. What are you saying?
That's what Elizabeth Warren said. She said the office is off to a great start if it's split between 2 people.
I must say, you know, anything that Elizabeth Warren says, I suggest you write it down and take it to the nearest dustbin and throw it into the dustbin.
But how do you think the job will be divvied up between your son and Vivek Ramaswamy?
Well, you know, it's a relief for me. Apart from the stupid people who say things like that, it's a great relief to me because I believe Vivek also has responsibilities, and so and the type of job that they're looking at taking on is really a mammoth job, you know, and so it's a real big job that they're faced with, and so the idea that they will be helping and looking at this together, and of course will also add a level of maybe empathy in if they work together. The one might say to the other, under certain circumstances, maybe this is all right, or let's give this a chance. So I think it's a very good thing. Certainly from my point of view, it means Elon is not saddled with this whole problem all on his own. It's just too much. So the 2 of them together, brilliant idea.
I mean, there will be criticism, though, won't there? It's pretty inevitable. Not just Elizabeth Warren, but others saying, Elon Musk has been put in a position of authority inside the very administration which he fundamentally regulates and often uses his businesses. Those who think there's a conflict of interest here.
No. In the world of technical things, people who fly aeroplanes and things, of course, like this, cars, rockets, everything, the very people who set up these companies that build aircraft and cars, and you might say things that could be can be involved in people being hurt and stuff. The very people that do that, they're the ones that write up the rules for that in the beginning. It's not written up by bureaucrats. The very people themselves who do that wrote up their own rules to say, we got to do this and we've got to do it like that and we've got to do it like this. And it was only afterwards that the bureaucrats come along and take those rules and see how they can stretch them around or whatever. No. Responsible people who start doing things that are of a dangerous possible nature also include in that how they are going to go about doing it safely. So no. Elon is very much in favor of the regulation and that everybody must abide by the regulation, proper regulations, meaningful regulations. So there's no way. Elon had electric cars that could self-drive 8 years ago, in 2015, in fact. And I've been in a car that could self-drive.
Sure. And I just wanted to ask you, I mean, your son is, of course, the richest man on the planet. I just wanted to take a very quick look at how he got there. We have this quick report.
Hi, everyone.
stage 1 entry burn startup.
And they're on your screen.
Dankeschön für alles.
Just lastly, Mr. Musk, it's been great talking to you. It's obviously been a great year for the Musk family, a great year for your son. Have you sent him your Christmas wish list, and what's on it?
No. You know, even for me, Christmas is very far away still. You know, we have too many things day by day. Christmas is in the far distance, but fortunately, the family's getting together for Christmas, and I'm not even sure of dates or anything like that. But I would certainly wish him the best of everything. But at the moment, I think they all deserve a bit of a rest. So let's hope that they do have a bit of a rest. Thanksgiving's coming up, which is very good. So that gives them a 4-day weekend, thank God. You know.
Yeah, it's going to be a busy year for your son next year, that's for certain.
Yes.
Really appreciate you taking the time to speak to us once again here on Al Arabiya News. Elon Musk's father, Errol Musk, thank you so much.
Thank you.
Now, diving deeper into Trump's team, another new appointment is Mike Huckabee as the next US ambassador to Israel. Well, Trump says that the pro-Israeli public official will bring peace to the Middle East. Well, Huckabee is often known to take a strong pro-Israel stance, once even saying there is no such thing as a Palestinian.
And basically, I mean, there really is no such thing as, and I have to be careful in saying this, because people will really get upset, there's really no such thing as a Palestinian.
Mike Huckabee speaking there. Well, he also frequently refers to the West Bank by its Hebrew names and has said that a two-state solution may not work.
Well, the two-state solution, if we mean two governments holding the same piece of real estate, is irrational and unworkable. And I think it's time for us to quit playing this pretentious game that there's going to be a two-state solution where both sides share the same country and real estate and streets, because they're not. One of the sides, the Palestinians, continue to say that Israel doesn't have a right to exist. You can't forge an alliance with that. So if there is a two-state solution, the Palestinian state needs to be outside the boundaries of the nation of Israel.
Well, for more analysis, we're joined now by David Sedney, former Deputy Assistant Secretary of Defense for Afghanistan, Pakistan and Central Asia during the Obama administration. Thank you very much indeed for taking the time to speak to us. We understand the former Arkansas Governor Mike Huckabee has been chosen as the next US ambassador to Israel. And I'm just wondering whether you think this offers any clues about the Trump administration's policy towards Israel and the wider region.
Well, it is a very direct statement. I think President-elect Trump, former President and President-elect Trump, has been very clear of his unstinting support for Israel and unwavering support for Benjamin Netanyahu. Governor Huckabee is a favorite of the religious right. He has made Israel a strong cause on the religious right, the evangelicals in the United States. They basically completely support Netanyahu and his policies. So I think it's not just a clue, it's a very clear signal that President Trump is going to do what he said he was going to do, offer full support to Israel. Whatever restraining ability the U.S. had up until now will go away on January 20th, and actually has gone away already with Trump's election.
Yeah, I mean, this was, of course, the same President, Donald Trump, who relocated the U.S. Embassy from Tel Aviv to Jerusalem. So fair to say, therefore, we're going to see a continuation of the sorts of policies we saw during that first administration, do you think?
Very much so, and it will be a break with the Biden administration. The Biden administration has focused both on supporting Israel and on humanitarian aid, and tried to play a restraining role. You won't see that in the United States anymore. This will be an Israel that has the full backing of the United States, really for whatever it decides to do.
Huckabee, of course, has been to Israel several times over the years. I'm just wondering, does he have a particular link to the country? Because as far as I'm aware, he doesn't have any Jewish roots, does he?
No, he doesn't, but his link is religious. The evangelicals in the United States believe very much in the land of Israel as the promised land. They believe that the Jews reoccupying Israel over the last century or so is consistent with their reading of the Bible. And they are very, very strongly supportive of the right of Israel to exist, and particularly of the far right in Israel.
Yeah, and we've had some reaction from Bezalel Smotrich, the finance minister of Israel, tweeting words of congratulations and using that very same language, Judea and Samaria, to refer to the West Bank, as we can see there on our screens. I'm assuming he's not alone. There are large elements or wide elements of the Israeli leadership that are similarly delighted by this news.
I think everyone who is supportive of Benjamin Netanyahu will be welcoming of this. Those who have been in opposition to Benjamin Netanyahu will not be pleased.
And Donald Trump saying he's going to work tirelessly to bring about peace in the Middle East. That was in a statement put out by President-elect Trump. How do you think he's going to do this, and how do you rate his chances?
Well, I think his chances are the same as everyone else's, to be frank. There's not been peace in the Middle East for really 80 years. And I don't see any likelihood of there being peace in the Middle East in the near future. What he will do is offer full support to Israel and support Israel in its efforts to demolish Hamas, to demolish Hezbollah, and to try and obtain a period of temporary peace, a peace of some years perhaps, based upon Israeli military strength. That will be the objective of the Trump administration, to support Israel militarily and to try and get a capitulation from Hamas and Hezbollah.
And just going back to peace more specifically between Israel and the Palestinians, do you think a two-state solution looks a more or a less distant prospect with Huckabee and in Jerusalem and Trump in the White House?
Oh, well, much more distant. Just as Trump moving the U.S. embassy to Jerusalem was a strong push against that. The support of the evangelicals, such as Ambassador designate former Governor Huckabee for Israeli settlements, the likelihood of a two-state solution, which in my view was never very high at the current time, has become much less likely.
Yeah, and viewed from the Palestinian side, I'm assuming they wouldn't take kindly to a lot of the comments that have been made by Huckabee over the years. Do you think they see him as a trustworthy partner?
I think they see him as someone who's fully supportive of Israel, and there's no love lost there at all. I don't see that there's likely to be any progress on that area. But you have to remember that President Trump did broker the Abraham Accords with Saudi Arabia and a couple of Gulf states. So he has been able to use, from his perspective, a position of strength to get other Arab states, not the Palestinians, but get other Arab states to acquiesce to Israeli, to acquiesce to Israel's actions. So there's a lot to come, but it's going to be very much on Israeli terms, not on Palestinian terms.
Yeah, and even people who criticize Donald Trump, and in particular on his foreign policy record, would point to the Abraham Accords as being one of the most significant achievements, or one of the most significant developments at any rate, in the region. Do you think those accords will be likely to be expanded to involve other countries in the second Trump term?
Well, many analysts believe that Hamas's decision to carry out the attacks in October of last year was traced directly to the Abraham Accords, the feeling that they had been abandoned by their co-religionists in the Middle East, and the belief that they had to reinvigorate their cause through a major violent action. So if you believe that the Abraham Accords, while successful in a geopolitical sense, led to the violence that's going on now, then more Abraham Accords will lead to more violence. It's a very complicated question, whether the Abraham Accords in the end were a good thing for the region or not.
Let's talk a bit about Pete Hegseth, who's been named as the Defense Secretary by Donald Trump. He's served in Afghanistan, served in Iraq, but he's perhaps best known for having been a Fox News host. Very different from James Mattis, who was, of course, a four-star general. And I'm just wondering whether you think Hegseth has got what it takes and whether he's got the right experience to fill that position.
Well, he certainly does not have the experience that others who have taken that job have had, but that doesn't mean that he can't be successful. That remains to be seen. He's very much an unknown quantity, even among Republicans. He was a complete surprise. Most people, both in and out of the Republican Party, had expected President-elect Trump to nominate Michael Pompeo, the former head of the CIA, former Secretary of State, to be the Secretary of Defense. Pompeo, I think, would have loved to have had that opportunity. But Trump made this very clear break with Pompeo and Nikki Haley right after he was elected, saying that Pompeo would not be part of his administration, and brought in someone who's really a pretty much complete unknown in defense circles in Washington. So we'll have to see what his views are. His views on a wide range of defense issues are not clear. He is in favor of more defense spending. He is clear on the threat posed by China. So I think there's certain themes that will be consistent from the first Trump administration, but how that will be carried out, that is really a complete unknown right now. People are very puzzled here.
Yeah, I mean, he doesn't sound terribly worried about the threat posed by Russia. That's just reading through the lines of various things that he's said. Also slightly dismissive about Ukraine. Doesn't sound very sympathetic towards their cause, and says he's more concerned about things happening much closer to home. Do those issues worry you at all?
Well, it's concerning if the United States were to reduce or even end its support for Ukraine. The issue of Russia is one that President Trump has been very clear on. He wants to reach out to President Putin, believes that he can solve the war. I think he said in the campaign trail in one day. He said he would do it in one day as soon as he was elected. That hasn't happened yet. I don't think anyone actually believes that's going to happen. So I think what will happen for Trump and for the new Secretary of Defense is they're going to face the reality of the world once they're in office. But where that will lead is really unclear right now. Certainly, if Ukrainians will be looking for more support from Europe and not counting on the United States to do very much over the long term. If that turns out to be wrong, that will be to their benefit. But they have to prepare for the possibility that U.S. support will be, if not removed, at least curtailed.
Just another case, would you say, this appointment of perhaps Donald Trump tearing up the rule book?
Well, there's a lot of tearing up of things that are going on in Washington right now. Probably the biggest question everyone has about anyone, whether it's a Secretary of Defense or any other secretary, is how they will interact with this new so-called Department of Governmental Efficiency, headed by Elon Musk and Vivek Ramaswamy, the unsuccessful presidential candidate. That is supposed to be an extra governmental organization that will suggest how to cut trillions of dollars from the U.S. budget, which would mean cutting huge amounts of the defense budget. However, at the same time, President Trump has said he would increase the defense budget. The Republican Party in Congress is very strongly in favor of increased defense spending and has criticized President Biden for not spending enough more on defense. So there are some huge conflicts that are built into the structure that President Trump appears to be creating, and how it plays out will be, at a minimum, a spectator sport and perhaps a blood sport in the months to come.
Yeah, in fact, we were just talking to Elon Musk's father just a moment ago about that new department. But just more broadly, looking at all these new appointments that have been announced today and in the last couple of days, are you seeing a pattern that's emerging with regards to the sorts of profiles of people that are taking up the top jobs?
The pattern is newness. The pattern is people who were not part of the first Trump administration. Traditionally, although there's only been one other president who was reelected for a second term after losing in the interim. But traditionally, presidents have relied upon people who've proven themselves in the prior administration in their prior administration to carry forward their vision in the second administration. President Trump has thrown away that playbook. He is appointing new people, a new chief of staff who doesn't have any experience in that kind of role in Washington. A new Secretary of Homeland Security who's been the governor of a state, one of the smallest states in the U.S., governor of South Dakota, which has no borders with any place. So it's a place where all the people being brought in are new, they're untried, they lack experience. That doesn't mean they can't be successful, but it means that their challenges are going to be huge, and their ability to, in the end, to do the most important thing of any Trump administration, which is to please President Trump, remains to be seen.
Yeah, I mean, some would say Trump is surrounding himself with loyalists. Of course, there was quite high turnover during the first Trump administration. There were 2 secretaries of state, 2 attorneys general, 2 defense secretaries. Do you think perhaps reducing turnover by having loyalists in his immediate entourage is perhaps one of the goals here? I actually don't buy into that appointment of loyalists. The people who've been appointed are no more loyal than the people who were appointed in the first term. And that's presupposing that there are people who are really loyalists to President Trump. There are people who seek his favor by gratifying his ego, but that's not the same as somebody who is ideologically committed to President Trump, who is loyal because of a belief in President Trump. I would say everyone is out for themselves, and it's going to be a scramble for power and influence, and that starts with Elon Musk. Elon Musk is not loyal to Donald Trump. Elon Musk is loyal to Elon Musk. And the fact that he has played a role in foreign policy already is sort of a challenge, both to Secretary Hedges on the defense side, Marco Rubio, if he gets to be the Secretary of State, the new National Security Advisor. All are going to have to deal with this unknown of Elon Musk, who, again, is only loyal to Elon Musk. These people are not loyal to Donald Trump. That's really a misnomer. These people are seeking to get out of President Trump and the presidency that he is going to assume. Just lastly, I mean, it's very well, and we looked at the position of, for example, Huckabee whilst in opposition, i.e. not in government, the same about the new defense secretary. Do you think there's a tendency, not just with this administration that's incoming, but with other incoming administrations, to say one thing in opposition, but then when they come into government, they've got better access to intelligence, they've got closer access to the generals and the mechanics, the machinery of US defense, to perhaps fall into a sort of a more similar line to the outgoing administration? Is that a pattern you've seen over the years?
Well, I think it's a little different than that. I think it's the fact that the U.S. is governed by 3 branches of government, the Supreme Court, the Congress, and the executive. While Republicans are going to very likely control all 3 of those branches now, they all have their own interests. So, for example, I talked about the statement by Elon Musk that he would cut $2 trillion from the U.S. budget. That would be a huge reduction in the U.S. Defense Department. There's a strong majority of Republicans in the Congress who want to increase that budget, not decrease it. So there are restraining factors built into the political system. But with President Trump, as we learned in his first term, a lot depends on what he reads in Twitter overnight and what he comes in the morning to do. So there's going to be a lot of, I would say, gelatinous overlay to everything, where things are slippery and things aren't clear and things change as the Trump presidency moves forward. Interestingly, one person that seems to have been losing out very big time on all of this is the vice president nominee, J.D. Vance. He seems to so far have no role in the new administration among all these new appointments and new commissions, et cetera.
Okay, well, we'll have to see how things develop during the days ahead. But we're going to leave it there. Thank you very much indeed for taking the time to speak to us. David Sedney, thank you so much. Now, in Lebanon, hopes for a ceasefire are rising, with the US envoy Amos Hochstein saying that there is, quote, a shot at a truce between Israel and Hezbollah. Well, the US and Israel have drafted a letter to lay the foundation for a ceasefire, but key obstacles remain. Israel wants a side letter from the United States guaranteeing that it can take military action in Lebanon if Hezbollah re-establishes its presence along the border. However, Hezbollah is likely to reject this proposal. As it has previously stated, it won't accept any deal allowing Israeli military action in Lebanon whatsoever. Well, for more, we can speak now to Tracy Chamoun, the former Lebanese ambassador to the Kingdom of Jordan, who joins us from Beirut. Great to have you with us once again here on Al Arabiya News. Can I just start by asking you to just bring us up to date on what's been happening in Lebanon today on the ground?
Well, I think it started yesterday, and I think this is definitely a sign of the mood that the new defense minister is in. And so, I think that he wants to send a clear message that he's much more aggressive about his intentions. And so yesterday they started bombing the southern suburbs very early on. I mean, they broke their schedule and started the bombing in the morning and continued it into the night. And today they've done the same thing. So I think that they're sending a very strong message, and this is all linked in, as you said, to this possible negotiation about a ceasefire. And they're raising the bar in order to put more points on their side.
We have heard, as I said in the introduction, from the White House envoy Amos Hochstein, who has been speaking to Axios, saying, quote, "There's a shot at a truce in Lebanon. I'm hopeful we can get it." Do you think that optimism is realistic, or do you think it's misguided?
I think it's misguided at this point. I think nobody can ensure the conditions for maintaining a lasting ceasefire. And I think also that the Israelis are really putting impossible conditions on the terms of this deal. They're, in a way, insinuating that they want to have a siege over Lebanon and control all the points of access to and from Lebanon, which is unacceptable, of course, to the Lebanese, and that's going to make life very difficult, and we're going to become a larger version of Gaza if that is the case. They also want to be able to continue their patrols over Lebanon, and right now we live with drones overhead the whole time monitoring us. So I think that that's just going to get worse and continue. So there'll be no change for the Lebanese in terms of any improvement by virtue of the ceasefire. Hezbollah is also unlikely to accept the terms that the Israelis are putting forward, because they're also talking about a monitoring committee consisting of the British and the Germans and the French and the Americans to implement 1701. And I think that as far as our Speaker of the House is concerned, he's been very clear in saying that the terms of 1701 are already laid and that the monitoring is done by the UN presently and continue, and we don't need any extra supervision to implement. On the Lebanese side, you also have a problem that the Lebanese armed forces are not necessarily well enough equipped right now to move in, and I know that there's a lot of pressure for them to go to the border, but they're underfinanced and undermanned, and so I think it's very optimistic at this point. You also have the Iranian leadership, which is involved directly with Hezbollah in the south in terms of the military confrontations. So, unless you get a real overall deal for a ceasefire where all the parties concerned are equipped and able to handle, deliver, maintain a ceasefire, it's unlikely that it will happen.
You say that, but what kind of a position is Hezbollah in to start dictating the terms here? I mean, they sound like they've been severely degraded. Can they really start calling any of the shots?
Well, I don't think they're as degraded as people like to think they are. I mean, today I just read right now that 7 Israeli soldiers were killed on the border. So I think every day there are casualties, and Hezbollah in their releases have claimed that they killed at least 100 Israeli soldiers and wounded over 1,000. So the confrontations are going on, and Israel is not being able to achieve necessarily the goals that it wants to achieve as quickly as it wants to achieve them. So I think that there is a form of resistance going on. There's also a lot of attacks that they're doing in Israel. They're launching daily between 70 and 150 rockets into Israel, some of them reaching Tel Aviv and very sensitive points in Tel Aviv. So they're putting up, a fight. And I think that's also provoking the Israelis to want to end this to a certain extent. It's something that they don't want to get mired in. the Lebanese battlefield because they know the consequences that will face an occupying force.
And of course, Hezbollah has brought the whole of Lebanon into this conflict with it. You know, more than 1 million people have been displaced, thousands of people have been killed. Are you getting any indications that public anger is starting to mount? Of course, the winter's coming, people are sleeping rough, people haven't been able to go back to their homes, hundreds of people have been injured. Any sense that public feeling is going to start being felt by Hezbollah as well, and that might force them into a position?
Well, the people who are really affected by this are their own people. And their own people have a very stoic attitude about enduring whatever is going on. The people who could get riled up are pretty much sheltered in these events. There are whole areas in Lebanon that are not being bombed or targeted, and people are leading normal lives. So I think it's not that they're, instigating anger among the population, but certainly the Lebanese do not want war, and many of our politicians are now coming out and saying, this is getting too big and too much for Lebanon to be able to handle. But the modus operandi of Hezbollah is linked to Iran, and so unless we're able to convince, the Iranian counterpart to stop their proxies from firing rockets into Israel, then I don't really see that there are many people that one can address in order to stop the fighting.
We've heard, and we mentioned Nabih Berri there, the Lebanese parliament speaker. He says he's waiting for a concrete ceasefire proposal. Not quite sure who he's waiting to receive what from. But in terms of negotiating, isn't he endorsed by Hezbollah to negotiate on their behalf? Does that mean he's necessarily going to have an important role in negotiations? And can he make concessions on behalf of Hezbollah, do you think?
He can't make concessions on behalf of Hezbollah, but he can report back to Hezbollah about what's being discussed, and he can be the intermediary with Hezbollah. But you have to understand that today we have a caretaker government that is really not in any way in a legitimate position to be able to negotiate these sovereign decisions concerning Lebanon. The Speaker of the House is legitimately in his position because he was elected by the people. So he is playing a very important role in these negotiations.
In terms of timing, I mean, we're in the last 69 or 70 days of the Biden administration. There's a last chance sort of element to all of this for the Biden administration. Do you think they've got enough leverage to get some sort of a deal on this before Biden is out of the White House?
I don't think so, and I've maintained from the beginning that this is a very dangerous period for Lebanon before President Trump takes office, because I think that the Israeli leadership is going to try and get as many wins as they can, both in Lebanon and in Gaza during this kind of empty period where there's really nobody that's forcing them to do anything. I think when Trump comes to power, it'll be a whole different situation, but they're going to make the most of this, which is why I think they've also escalated now. So we're going to see a lot more assassinations and a lot more bombings, unfortunately, during this period.
And in the meantime, more mixed messages from Israel. I mean, I don't know about you, but I found it quite confusing. This week alone, we've been getting from Israel on Monday, the Foreign Minister Gideon Saar saying there has been certain progress in the ceasefire talks over Lebanon. But also on Monday, we heard Israel's new Defense Minister, Israel Katz, saying no ceasefire until Israel achieves its goals in Lebanon. I mean, it's very difficult to understand exactly how the Israeli side sees things, isn't it?
Yeah, I think they're paying lip service to the outgoing administration. They had a problem with delivery of weapons tied into the frequency of the aid that they were letting through to Gaza. So I think there's a lot of lip service being paid. But I think that their intentions are very far from ending the present conflict. And also the Lebanese feel that this is just another trick. I mean, if you remember when their Prime Minister Netanyahu was at the UN, there was the whole negotiations about the ceasefire, and which he had agreed to in a preliminary way, and then at the same time ordered the assassination of Hassan Nasrallah. So I think that there's a lot of feelings that of dubiousness about the whole proceedings.
And just with regard to Hassan Nasrallah, from what you were telling us earlier, it does sound as though Hezbollah is managing fairly well without Hassan Nasrallah.
They are, because they've been taken in hand by the Iranians, and they have a system in place where they're just, implementing their orders.
Okay, and all the while, Israel continuing with its ground and air offensive, it doesn't sound either as though there's any let-up in the intensity of that.
Not at all, and I think that really there is a deafening silence in the world in terms of what's happening and what is being allowed to happen. Bombing of whole cities in the south, they are blowing up villages. They've blown up 37 villages in the south. That means demolition crews have gone in, dynamited homes, and turned them into rubble. This is unacceptable by any convention, the Geneva Convention, or any other, human rights convention. And so I think that the world needs to become much more aware and much more vocal about what Israel is getting away with in Lebanon.
Yeah, I think the whole world and many news outlets around the world have been very much focused on the US election during the course of the last week.
Yes.
And that's to a certain extent understandable. But as you say, it's eclipsed Lebanon somewhat. But just turning to the US elections, obviously Donald Trump has come out on top. I'm just wondering whether a final thought. Do you think that perhaps is going to change something? What do you think he brings to the table? And do you believe that claim he's made that he can end this whole conflict with a phone call?
I don't know about a phone call. It might take a little bit more than that, but I think his intention is to end this conflict. I don't know if the relationship with Netanyahu is as good as people make it out to be. I think that, you have two strong men and both of them in power, and let's see what happens.
All right, we're going to have to leave it there. Really appreciate you taking the time to talk to us. Tracy, Chamoun, thank you very much indeed.
Thank you. Thank you.
Well, that is all we have time for on Global News today. Thank you very much indeed for watching. Be sure to join us again tomorrow for more exclusive interviews. Until then, goodbye.